The story takes place in a small, long-gone nation where extreme poverty is the norm and finding food and money is both difficult and rare. A gang of rats cause trouble by making their way to the waste area of a magical institution and eating everything they can find due to the state's unlivable crisis. Several of these are magical objects, such as spellbooks, potions, and powders. The rodents quickly gain a greater sense of intelligence after being exposed to these paranormal items, leading to their eventual development into sentient beings. After leaving the magical waste area, the now intelligent rats team up with Keith, a young boy, and Maurice, a wise cat. As they band together in order to make money in order to survive, they create an unlikely group of con artists. The con artists move to a new town each week and create a rodent epidemic. The crafty rats infiltrate a village in accordance with their predetermined plan, causing havoc among the locals. Following the rodent invasion, Maurice shows up in the village and offers Keith, who he calls the rat tamer, as a service. The cunning cat cleverly deceives the helpless townspeople, eventually persuading them that Keith has the ability to control rats with music. The duplicitous villagers give Maurice a number of silver coins in exchange for the rat tamer's services after falling for his lies. The rats, who are part of the plan, waddle toward Keith as he arrives on the scene and blows his flute as they leave the village. The acting rats travel to a nearby river and pretend to drown by falling in it while putting on a convincing performance. Maurice and Keith quietly leave the town and meet up with the rats on the other side of the river as the locals cheer them on. The con team reassembles a short while later and congratulates one another on a job well done. They then move on to Bad Blitz, their next intended target town. The city of Bad Blitz is very modern, with well-built homes and roads, in contrast to the nearby villages. The town is beset by terrible famine, so its residents must endure less than ideal living conditions, despite its sophisticated infrastructure. Food theft cases have increased significantly recently in Bad Blitz without apparent cause. People across the city have been complaining about an unidentified animal stealing their meals. The thefts continue to increase in frequency over time until 90% of the town's food supplies were gone, resulting in a severe famine. Naturally, the residents of Bad Blitz believe that a rat infestation is to blame for the famine, so the mayor employs a team of rodent control specialists. The town is free of rats in a matter of weeks, but this has no effect on the number of cases of food theft. The con artists arrive in the city a few days later and divide into smaller groups. The rats are scurrying around the city's sewers looking for ways to cause trouble. As Maurice and Keith search the city for food, they eventually find the mayor's residence. There, the group meets Militia, a young child who turns out to be the mayor's daughter. Following their conversation, Militia informs the con artists of the strange food theft cases occurring in the city and suggests they work together to solve the mysterious case. Maurice and Keith decide to assist her as they travel to the rat exterminator's office to conduct an investigation because they have nothing better to do. Once there, the shrewd Militia quickly searches for hints before picking the door lock and breaking in. Fortunately, they don't have to look for very long because Militia discovers a lever that activates a trap door leading to a subterranean cellar. They look around the secret rooms out of curiosity and soon find a room with all of the town's missing food. When they notice this, the ravenous group immediately rushes to the food that has been stolen and grabs a few bites while they investigate the food theft. The group is interrupted shortly after when Peaches, one of the rats, discovers them in the cellar. The lone rodent alerts them to the anxious news that a fellow rat has been caught in a trap in the sewers. Peaches begins to explain, but the other rats show up with Darkton, the trapped rat who also happens to be their leader, before she can finish. Fortunately, Militia discovers how to set the trap aside and succeeds in releasing Darkton. Sadly, as soon as they come together again, the rat exterminators show up and catch them in the act. The criminals wasted no time in attacking and capturing all the rats and people. Only Morris was able to escape. The exterminators decide against killing Keith and Militia, and instead imprison them in the pantry with the other rats, all but Sardines, in cages. Maurice shows up shortly after the group is abducted and assists in releasing the rats from their cages. Now that they are free, Maurice and the rats separate, with some going to the pantry to save the humans while the others start looking for Sardines. Fortunately, Keith and Militia are quickly located by Morris and the rats, who then successfully set the two prisoners free. Together, the group exits the pantry, but not before adding laxatives to some of the exterminators' meals. The unwitting criminals continue to greedily consume their food when they return, but they soon feel an odd rumbling in their stomachs. Keith and Militia show up a short while later and interrogate the exterminators regarding the cases of food theft. The criminals initially choose to keep quiet and refuse to divulge their plans. Their obstinacy is quickly overcome, though, when a witty Keith reveals that their food was tainted and offers to give them the remedy if they admit it. The exterminators eventually give in to their demands and finally tell the truth as their stomachs mercilessly growl. It turns out that the two had captured a large number of rats, which caused the rodents to combine to create the Rat King, a mutant creature. The fact that this monstrous creature is a sentient being with the capacity to exert control over rats' minds renders it a very dangerous creature. After learning this, the group quickly moves to find a way to stop the Rat King, after finally telling the exterminators where they kept the antidote. The only thing that could stop the monstrous creature, according to Militia, who enjoys reading, is a magical pipe with animal controlling abilities. However, it's difficult to locate this enchanted item because its owner is tucked away in the middle of a pitch-black forest. Keith and Militia bravely set out on a mission to look for this magical pipe despite the risk involved. Together, the pair navigates the gloomy woods and overcomes a number of challenges on the way to their destination. The tenacious teenagers finally locate the magical pipe after a long journey. After closer examination, they learn that Mr. Piper, a strange man, is the owner of the enchanted object and uses it to entice and capture animals. The two wait and watch the man as he enters his home and passes out, erring on the side of caution. The teenagers immediately take advantage of the fantastic opportunity and break into Mr. Piper's house. Keith locates the pipe there, which the sleeping man was holding tightly, and gently takes it from him. Sadly, the man wakes up and knocks the boy out with a jug as soon as the youngster turns his back on Mr. Piper. Keith awakens a short while later to find Militia pleading with the strange man to hand over the magical object. However, Piper pulls out the musical instrument and blows it before Keith has a chance to process the situation. As soon as the duo is possessed by the sound and obeys Piper's commands, we learn that the magical pipe can control humans as well as animals. The evil man manipulates the teenagers using the musical instrument and takes them to a hot oven. Fortunately, a strange object enters Piper's clothing and stops him from blowing just before the pair is led to their deaths. It is revealed to be an automated rat toy that Militia had snuck into his clothes as the moving device emerges from his pants. The device hurtles Piper terribly, causing the villain to leap into the oven as his clothes catch fire. The villain, who is now engulfed in flames, escapes the oven quickly and dives into a nearby well as the teenage teen goes after the magic pipe. The earlier rodents, meanwhile, finally advance when they discover sardines in an underground ring. Rats and dogs are fought in these pits for the amusement of spectators. Sardines is then added to the ring and helplessly trembles as a vicious dog gets ready to devour the small creature. Fortunately, the other rats show up and quickly come up with a plan to free Sardines before the dog is let loose. While the other rodents rescue their trapped coworker, a buff Darkton jumps into the arena and distracts the dog. After Sardines has been found, Darkton leaps out of the pit and flees as the onlookers try in vain to catch him. Darkton joins the other rats and Morris after escaping as they all make an effort to flee the city. Unfortunately, the group doesn't travel very far because they encounter the Rat King on the way. The telepathic powers of the mutant creature are used right away to compel the rats to approach him. All but one of the rats, named Bean, are dragged toward the telepathic monster by their inability to control their bodies. Morris quickly flees the area after spotting the rats in danger and goes in search of Keith and Militia in the shadowy forest. Fortunately, he quickly runs into the pair and alerts them to the arrival of the Rat King. The trio doesn't waste any time in rushing to the scene as they get ready to defeat the Rat King. When he gets there, Keith tries to control the mutant creature with the pipe, but for some reason it doesn't quite respond to the magical instrument. The Rat King pulls the rats toward him and grabs Keith, tossing him aside, unfazed. Bean is the only rat left when the mutant creature eventually swallows the rest of the rats. The Rat King seizes Beans and attempts to squeeze him to death after realizing that his telepathic powers do not function on him. Fortunately, Keith steps in and plays the pipe once more. This time, he pays particular attention to playing a lovely melody rather than a series of notes. The mutant's body is impacted and begins to evaporate, demonstrating the effectiveness of the strategy change, thereby freeing all of the trapped rats. Even though they succeed in doing so, the battle is far from over because the Rat King's heart withstands the assault. Then we find out that the rats that make up the mutant's core are resistant to the music coming from the pipe. These rodents instantly cast a wide-ranging spell on the region, freezing everyone but Beans in place. The group extends an invitation to the resistant rat to join them, but Beans declines and swears never to be a part of the group. When the Rat King hears this, he casts a spell on Beans that severely harms him. Chilly upon seeing his injured colleague, Morris is heartbroken and overcome with rage. The cat breaks the spell and attacks the mutant creature as a result of this intense emotion. The Rat King is terrified and uses his magic to try to keep Morris away. The tenacious cat, however, fends off their assaults and perseveres as he claws at the rats and eventually bites off their centers, thus definitively eliminating the mutant. Morris is hurt by the attack's powerful energy blast, which brings him dangerously close to death. The cat discovers Bean's body and the Grim Reaper, attempting to carry the rodent to the afterlife there. Morris offers to trade 2 of his 9 lives. He is a cat after all, for Beans. The generous offer moves the Grim Reaper, who is moved by it, to accept it and return both of them to the living world. The two wake up moments later as their friends exhale in relief. In the final scene, rats and people coexist peacefully as the city of Bad Blitz finally recovers from the famine. This concludes the recap of animation. Turn on the notification for more videos like this one and subscribe.